thank you for joining us for this unplanned part 2 of the Jonny Z story. Since his unfortunate passing last week, John Albino, media has been reaching out to you for your story. And somehow we at Poster Club got that. How did that happen?
Enchantment.
You heard it here, folks. What was your relationship with Johnny? Obviously very close.
My relationship started many decades ago in the 80s. Johnny had approached me when he was first starting, and he was a funny guy, man. He was just getting things going, and he came up to a band I was in at that time, who was actually a cover band. And he had just said, come on. He goes, come on, just throw some chords together. He goes, E, A, D. And it was funny too, because he's such a great guy, but it was funny, at that time I was not really taking it too serious. And, he had started a whole new movement that, I had moved on to other things. I had stayed in metal, and then I got into hard rock, and of course Johnny set the pace for a brand new movement, which was amazing. So it started back then.
So you were right there from the beginning. So he knew you or knew of you? What was it?
Well, he was the type of guy. He would go around to places and find bands, or he would look for what the popular bands were around that time. And I was fortunate enough to be in one of those popular bands. And he had come out and he had talked to me, and it was funny too, because he had talked to me personally about it. And like I said, he was such a great guy, and he was so motivated, and he was, he's full of electric, So that's what he did. He would just go around, because I think he really had that vision of grabbing bands, especially bands. He was looking at bands at that time that were into the metal scene, because the metal scene was really, really happening, and we happened to be one of those bands, and that was it.
Was he a metal fan or a rock fan, or he was just saw the vision of the future?
He had a vision. He was a very he was a very like long spectrum kind of guy. He liked metal, and then he liked everything from metal all the way to the Grateful Dead. He was he had a lot of variety in him. It was really, really cool. But I mean, like I said, he seen that vision, and he made that vision happen. So it was pretty amazing.
As we saw in part 1, I shopped at his store, and I did have an encounter with him. But I followed his business plan. Like I was aware of what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to press my own records back then, but the guys I was playing with did not understand any of it. You looked for a label, and I followed the punk movement, and I followed what he was doing, and it became the future.
I don't think at the time a lot of guys, unfortunately, were taking him serious. That this was a guy who was just starting a label. He was going to make it all happen, and that's what it was. I think everybody was looking to go to, Columbia Records, and they were looking to go to Atlantic Records, and they were looking to do that kind of thing and not taking it serious. And he proved them all wrong.
Yeah.
It was an amazing, amazing adventure.
I mean, it was the soundtrack of our youth.
Yeah,
It really was. People of my age,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever age that might be. Yeah.
Well, like I said, he was an amazing guy, and as time went on, we had become friends through different channels. I can remember him coming to my house in the '90s, and we had mutual, like I said, we had mutual people between us, and we just wound up just becoming friends, and we never even really talked about music as the two of us together. It was a great friendship, and as the years went on, we just wound up staying friends in one way or another. Johnny, me, and Marcia, and then at one point, when Sandy hit, there was so much devastation. We all remember that.
Yeah.
And so what happened was, Johnny and I were just friends, and he had called me up. And he said that he wanted to do something. He wanted to just help in one way or another. And so he called me, and of course the first question I had was, why would you call me? And he was so funny, man. He just said, by the way, I had a dream last night that I was putting together a show. And he goes, and your face popped up. And I went, what was my face doing? And he actually said, I'm not really sure. I said, because, I said, the only thing I could see me doing is playing guitar. And he just said, no. He goes, you're involved in one way or another. So we started talking. And then somehow or another, through this conversation, I wound up becoming a production concert coordinator. And he had some ideas on who he wanted to bring together. He had the venue that he really, he felt really, really strong about. And he had good people who seen the vision of helping. And, we had it at, I believe it was in Freehold. Was it called I Play America?
Oh, yeah, right.
And it's just a fantastic room that we had. And he started putting things together. And somehow or another, I just was able to kind of grab into that, get into that whole vibe and make things happen. And we were very, very meticulous. We had some really, really wonderful bands. And they were bands that Johnny had always dealt with. You had let's see. You had the Rods, probably one of my most favorite bands ever. And what a pleasure to work with these guys. These guys were not only so good, they were so pro and they were so humble. Let's see, we had TT Quick.
They got back together for this, I assume.
Yeah, they had gotten back together, and I had forged a relationship with these guys too, especially David, and we were doing some stuff on the side, and then Mark, David, and I started doing stuff on the side, and then what happened was this crazy idea came up. So why don't you play that night? And so I wound up playing with the band, which wound up going into other things. But even that night, let me see, who else was on that night? Twisted Sister was on that night.
Oh, really?
We wound up getting Twisted Sister. Let's see, who else? Anvil was on that night too. So it was really just, it was a great night. Oh, Raven came on that night too. So these were all guys that Johnny had always dealt with. They loved him, they loved him so much. And what happened, we became very meticulous. So what happened was Johnny left it in my hands and he just said, listen, you go through all the interviews, you go through the bands, you make sure that everything is cool. So this was over a period of many months. Like this show was going to be the big show that Johnny hasn't done in a long time. So what happened was we were very meticulous. Even when it came to the road crews of all the bands, I actually called each individual guy in the road crew in personally over to our studio at the time, which was in Airport Plaza, and now we are here in Chelsea Place Plaza, 3253. Anyway,
Bulletproof Music Studio.
Shameless plug. But what happened was we were very, very, very meticulous about the bands. We were very meticulous about everybody who was working the show and how it looked. Johnny said, look, my name and Marcia's name is on this. And he goes, and so is yours. So, it came together so beautifully. Listen, it was a fantastic show. I mean, it had some problems and issues, but somehow or another we were able to work it out. No real problems, but I mean, we raised a lot of money. We were able to get it to all the right people. And that started everything again. Like things started, happening again. I was actually asked to go and be a tour manager on the road. I go, no, just hit me with a hammer. So I wound up not doing it from that show, and then I wound up just being the concert coordinator, production coordinator for Johnny for a little while.
Was this your first foray into being a production poobah?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yes, it was my first time. I had managed things before, but nothing on this high degree. And it was really nice because I would talk to Johnny and Marcia. Marcia had always said, during that time, she said, you were always one step ahead of us. And, I just wanted to do a great job because I knew it was for charity. And I really wanted to, put my 100% into it. I did a few more shows, and then, it's a the problem with that kind of job is it's a thankless job, in the sense that if you do a great job, nobody cares. If you do a terrible job, well, you are crucified.
That's for sure.
And so at one point or another, I had just decided, I went to Johnny and Marcia's one night, and we were talking. I just decided, I said, listen, guys, that's it for me. I said, I'm basically done with this. So they looked at me and just said, well, what's next for you? And I had told them, well, at this point, I said, I'm writing, I'm a Christian-based guy, and I'm writing basically Christian hard rock. And I said, I want to put a record out, and I want to start a record company. So they seemed to be really interested in that concept. So I just said, listen, I'm going to go. I wound up driving back to New Jersey at that time. The guys were in New Hope. And then from that point forward, I got home and I got an email from Johnny and just said, Marcia and I want in. And that's how this all started with Insight Records, and his involvement in Insight in executive production, Bulletproof Music, John's Crossing. That's how it actually all started. And he was hoping that John's Crossing would be the first band on. The only problem was he had never heard any of the stuff. And this man was brutally honest. He was like a brutally honest guy. And I remember we had a couple of demos, and I said, listen, I'm going to send you over 2 songs. And I had him on the phone, and he just started moaning. He's, I don't know. I go, what's the matter? He goes, I really, really hope this stuff is good. He said, because if it's not good, I'm going to have to tell you it sucks. And he was that type of guy. And I just said, all right, well, you know what? That's fair enough.
Yeah.
That's really fair enough. So we sent him over two demos. I don't even remember what they were. I think one song was a song called My Word. I don't remember what the other one, it might have been Revelation song. But anyway, we sent it over to him. We did not hear back from him. And an hour went by, 2 hours went by, 2.5 hours went by, and I said, okay, this is not feeling good at this point. And so what happened was, I didn't realize at the time, I had forgotten that he was a guy who would listen, when he listens to music, if he's even faintly interested, he'll listen to this stuff over and over and over again. So he was sitting there and he was listening, and then all of a sudden the phone rang, and I went, well, here we go. And he got on the phone, and he just said, by the way, he goes, I love this stuff. He goes, I love it. He was hearing a lot of the R&B stuff, so he was calling it Blue-Eyed Soul. He goes, what else you got? He said, he goes, even if all the stuff is this way, we're going to go with it. But what he really did love about the first record, it was a very diversified record. It was so, it went from very, very hard rock to Crosby, Stills, Nash, and he loved that. So as time went on, he wound up being the executive producer for the record. He was really so happy to do it. Johnny was great because you could run everything by him. In fact, he insisted that you run everything by him. I loved that. A lot of guys would feel very insecure about that kind of thing. I actually felt great about it. I valued his opinion. He was a great friend, loved him very much, and he let's face it, he had that special thing. He could hear something and know.
Yeah.
And so what would happen is we'd send him something, and he'd say, well, right here, I kind of, what about here, and what about this, what about that? And I would sit there going, that's pretty cool. That's okay. Well, what's really funny is, folks, let me tell you something. He made sure and reminded me, remember when you left? He was so funny. And I sat there and I said, he's so right about this. He's so right about it. He was right then. And he was right to actually, he took me down a couple of sentences. And it was really a lot of fun. As time went on, he got very, very, he got so far into this that he was staying here at the studio. And at the time, we had, a lot of the stuff was already written and played. And he was part of that. At that time, we had to brought in D Spitz and a couple other players to play on the record. And Johnny was basically staying it here. This amazing man had already moved to Florida, and he already had his place in Florida. And so he was just, traveling and coming here. He was so into this record and the whole movement, the whole, spiritual and Christian movement with a band like this. He was staying in my house. I would give him basically the whole first floor. I gave him my bedroom so he didn't have to, run up and down stairs all the time. But for the most part, he was here so much. And then when he wasn't at my house, he would go to that hotel that's right next to Bulletproof. But he'd be sleeping on the floor. He'd be sleeping on the bass baffle. He wanted to make sure that he was an intricate part of what was going on. And to me, it humbled me that this fine man would do something like that. And he was so into it. Even when, things had come up where, it could have been beneficial, he would look at it and say, this is not, he would say, this is not right for this situation, And like I said, he was such a part of this. And that's why, if you look on the first record, he's the executive producer. And what's amazing too is it was basically his last time. If you go into the book, you'll notice that there's an array of amazing records that this man put out. And what happened was, if you look, we are the last record. We're the final record. And this was his final place and his final record.
You're absolutely right. It says it right here. I tell you, man. Heavy Tales. I tell you. Was he on his spiritual path before this record? Or is that something that just started to really develop as you spent more time with him?
I think what happened with Johnny was I can tell you from positively that during this time and us being together, it grew. If you ask the concept, and you make it really simple and say, did this man believe in God? He absolutely did. But he was, he became, yes. Johnny would tell you himself, he became very, very, in fact, in your interview, he talks about that. He became very, very in tuned spiritually. He embraced more of the Bible, the book itself, the how-to book. And he would ask a lot of questions. When John's Crossing would play, a lot of times not only would we play at gigs, but we also be playing in churches. And Johnny and Marcia were so wonderful. They literally would show up and sit at the church, and not only to see John's Crossing, but actually to get the word. And we had some pastors going in and out of this place, and Johnny wound up becoming like friends with them and talking to them about things and stuff. So he was really, really embracing it, and I was so happy for him because listen, at the end of the day, this has to be the most important thing. When it comes to that, is that what you truly believe in. And he would talk about the dark stuff, and this dark stuff that had happened in his life, just like the rest of us. Yeah. But he was very, very vocal to me about did some dark stuff. We all did, but he was really, I believe that he was in the light. And I was also friends with parts of his family that we were watching this amazing transition with everyone. A couple of people in his family were already on that road, and they were but what happened was you've seen it more and more and more, and it was very, very cool. He absolutely embraced it.
I find it curious too that he signed this book to you as a friend. Remember to keep it both holy and heavy. Yeah, that is cool.
What's really funny? I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That book is out there, for all to see, and I forgot that's what it was actually. What he
Isn't that cool? Yeah.
he really loved that record so much. I just think there was, besides the music, there was more to it for him. And he loved that first record, and he made a point to tell me many times. We were so glad to have him. I think it was a great experience. It was a great experience for me. It was a great experience. I knew it was a good experience for him. He was very meticulous. He was very meticulous with everything. With the music, he was meticulous with photos, photo shoots, radio interviews. He was extremely meticulous, and I loved that so much that it humbled me, like I said, but to show that this man could care so much about a situation that was something, we don't want to say it was something new, but it was definitely something different in his life. Like this was just a whole new genre for him, So it was, it was an amazing thing. I miss him very much. We didn't always agree. In fact, there was a couple of times in the end, we didn't agree with a couple of things, but
Well, I only met him twice, and he got mad at me both times. I wanted the poster with the hole in it, and then I mentioned Billy Milano. So he's always trying to strangle
you
me.
can never talk about that person.
Billy Milano named Testament. I never would have even
I don't
guessed.
discuss, by the way, I don't discuss Billy Milano whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
Okay, move on.
The poster. the hole in the poster. That's what I meant.
Well, he's going to look at you, and what's going to happen is, he's going to say, and you're going to try and, you're going to try and talk him down. I go, well, he's looking at you, he's going to say, do you want this or not? Do you want it? If you want it, just go buy it. He was that type of guy.
But I made it a point to annoy him at least once a conversation.
Wonderful.
But you know what? You know who else loves the John Crossing album? Franco Frasetti. Franco heard the album before I did, and did you hear this? Did you hear? I'm like, no. He's like, it's the album of the year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's the Buster Club stamp.
AC/DC.
And you can take that to the bank, folks.
Yeah,
you can take it to the bank.
But that must have been Johnny's influence on that record, I guess.
Well,
Or was it yours?
well, it's funny too, because we put out this, we still haven't officially put out the second record, and it was called Sign of the Sun. And Johnny had on this record, he had his favorites, and he made a very, very, very vocal what he wanted and what he didn't want. And he, for the second record got a bit heavier, and believe it or not, for the second record, he actually moved over toward it goes to show you the change in his life. He actually went for the more acoustic stuff, and he also went for more of the worship, meaning the work, like music you would not only hear to 50,000 people, we also hear in a church. Yeah. And there was one particular song that is on there called Be My Hope, and he would always make me, he said, when you come up with a song, grab your guitar and then get me on FaceTime. And so I would get him on FaceTime, and I wound up playing the song for him. I wound up just sleeping on it. It was something that came in a sleep, and then I just wrote it out, and 45 minutes later, the song was there. And I remember playing it for him, and I just sitting there playing it and singing it, and this man he actually started crying, and he had such a great heart. So that's where his heart was. Well, when it came to what we were doing, he was much more spiritually connected to worship music and the acoustic stuff. There was another song that he liked on that record called The Risen King. He liked that kind of stuff. And we had the heavier stuff. We really, the record started getting heavier. And he was like, no, we like the worship stuff. And yet people were coming to him saying, really, you got to listen to this. Listen to this heavy stuff that they're doing. And he said, no. He goes, I'm into I'm more into the spiritual worship stuff. And so the point that's being made is that's what I'm saying. That's where I do believe that's where his heart was. And I do believe that that's where his love was and his spirit was, and basically that's it.
It's amazing to me how you see the evolution of everything from your production with with that big show at I Play America to producing John's Crossing and then him getting involved. Everything grows together, if I'm putting that together right. If you're open, you grow. And it seems like you both grew together.
Yeah, we didn't have musically, we didn't have a lot of differences. I think it was because we respected each other. I absolutely respected him when it came to his opinion, and I listened. He seemed, I would tell him how I felt about things. And disagreements were really, for the most part, were usually just resolved, So it was just a really, really, really great chemistry. But he was a firm believer in the movement of what we were doing. He's seen the band playing in front of 50,000 people, but he also seen a band playing in a church and watching people get saved. So he believed in all of that. Also, too, he also believed that we should be going out to the heathenist areas and playing, because the band was also a hard rock band. So the band could go up there. The band didn't go up there and just give you a kumbaya. We went up with Les Pauls and Marshalls and did our thing, and he loved that because he felt that our message was really clear. The words, he loved the words to the songs. He felt that they were testimony, which they were. Basically, they were testimony of my life. Listen, I was in the darkness at one time. So, and so a lot of the words, if you read the words, it's a testimony of what's going on and where I am. And he really thought that was honest. He thought it was an honest thing, and he believed in that.
I'd like to invite our viewers, though, to come down to Bulletproof Studios in Hazlet, New Jersey, and see some of the memorabilia. Some of Johnny's personal effects are on the walls.
Yeah, they are.
There's a Metallica album, there's Anthrax, there's TT Quick. There's, Johnny, this was like a home to him also.
Yeah, he was, he loved this place. He loved this place. He loved everything about it. He even recommended that we have when we first put out the record, when we had the record release, we could have had the record release basically anywhere we wanted to. He said, "Oh, by the way, we got to have it here. We got to have it at the studio." He had made that decision, and and it was really it was a great night. It was a really, really great night. He was right about that one too. Like I said, we could have went somewhere else, but this seemed to be the place. He really felt at home here, and also he liked my cooking too. So.
Well, who doesn't?
Oh, there you go. Like I said, he was an integral part of the whole machinery when John's Crossing really came to fruition, and like I said, this was a home for him.
Do we have any questions?
I do.
Oh, yes. You in the Marilyn Manson t-shirt.
Was there a separation between what he did with the same bands, Metallica and Anthrax, and that was a different part of his life that he never went back to?
It's a great question. He was an amazing guy. The one thing I noticed about Johnny was that those stories wouldn't come up unless somebody actually brought certain things up. He was a guy that was always looking. He was innovative, and he was always a guy that was looking toward the future. Okay, he comes from the heavy stuff, but and he still loved the heavy stuff. Okay, but he wasn't a guy who sat there and just kind of laid his whole life on what he did. He did so much, but he didn't lay his life on all that. He was always looking. He was a great man. This guy was always looking ahead. If you brought it up, then you bring it up. We talk about it, and there were always amazingly great stories. But I got to tell you, he was not a guy who relied on it. He didn't have to. He was not a guy who had to rely on that kind of stuff. You know, there were some really funny stories, you know, especially when you had guys here from Anthrax and stuff like that, you know, and then, you know, some stories would come up here and there. But no, I heard many stories, but those stories came up only when brought up. You know, he was a very secure guy.
Anyone from those major bands, were any of those people actually his friends?
I think what happened was, you know, when bands first started out and they're actually very young, you know, people rely on each other. But I don't know if it was really friendship as much as, you know, especially when money starts coming in, you know, and it becomes strictly, you know, it almost becomes strictly business. But I did see many of these bands as time went on, and correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows this, but as time went on and bands got older, you know, and, you know, it's not, and their careers were still bustling, but as they got older, I think they really appreciated him even that much more and became more of friends, you know, not just business. Back then, business was business. Johnny would tell me stories all the time where, you know, he would just say, look, I love those guys, whoever they may be. And he said, but, you know, there was a time when it's like, you know, it's just over now. Like, that's as far as we go. As you know, whether it be record company or even when it came to craze management, you know, he would just say, well, that's as far as we go. You know, that's as far as you know. And then later on, you know, you hear all these stories. Like you see so many of these bands that just have so many great things to say about him. You know, and they said it while he was alive. And that is what I really appreciated the most. Like I seen these guys saying so many words, saying basically if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't be where they are. That speaks volumes. Volume. It speaks so much that I would not be here today if it wasn't for this guy.
Well, I'm sure a lot of these guys emptied their refrigerator. Every piece of cheese, every soda, every beer.
Hey, listen, you know, I'm sure that you know the stories. They all paid dues, but you know, it was Johnny who got them to where they were. You know, anything past that point is gravy, and I think it's amazing that they went further and further and further. But remember something: you can't forget where you started, and without guys like him, it wouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. Face it, this whole movement wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Before we get into the John's Crossing, we have some live footage we're going to present to the viewers to see what Johnny was so excited about. Is there anything you'd like to add? I mean, is there anything we left out?
No, you know, I just, you know, like I said, this was an amazing man, and he was a man with vision, and we all have some type of vision, but he made his vision a reality, and he did it his way. Nothing against Frank Sinatra, he did it his way, and you know, it's something that has gone down in history, and should have gone down in history as it is. He was an individual. He put this all together, and that's why it all exists now. And remember, everything that he did, look at how it's sprawled out all over the world. It's all so many bands, and so many heavy bands, thrash bands, and they sit there and say, oh, you know, we listen to Metallica, or we listen to Anthrax. Well, who got these guys going?
Yeah.
So you know what? I mean, I don't know what else to say except for the fact that that's huge.
Get the book.
Get the book!
Get the book.
All right.
Heavy Tales, the metal, the music, the madness, as lived by Jon Zazula. And check out some John's Crossing.
He'll never fall. The Messiah
viewed himself as a success?
Yes, I do. Rightly so, because he. It wasn't like reinventing the wheel. I mean, this was something that was totally new and different. And yes, I do believe that he viewed himself as a success. And again, like I said, rightly so. Um, Not many people can change the course of music, because when you listen to when you listen to stuff like Black Sabbath, one of my all-time favorites, and then you listen to what happened when Johnny hit the scene, and then everything that's going on now, he's responsible for that. So yeah, I do believe he believed himself to be a success, and he also loved life. He loved life and he loved enjoying things.
So who is he putting together in heaven right now? Like what kind of concerts are going on?
I don't know. I hope all these, I know Johnny made it to heaven. I hope these other guys made it to heaven. But I know he did. Like I said, I do believe he was a firm believer in Jesus Christ. And with that said, he got his ticket. He got his ticket up into heaven.